Right now, somewhere in your house, there is probably a screen within arm's reach. And at some point today, maybe 10 minutes ago, maybe 30 seconds ago, you picked it up for no reason. Not because you needed anything. Not because anyone messaged you. Just because something in your brain said, do something, anything, and you obeyed it without thinking. That feeling has a name, and the fact that you get it at all is one of the strangest things about being human. Because no other animal on Earth experiences boredom the way you do. And the reason why reveals something deeply uncomfortable about what the human brain was actually built for. Let's start with what boredom actually is, because most people have it backwards. The common assumption is that boredom is what happens when there is nothing to do, when the world goes quiet and the brain runs out of input. But that is not what the science says. In 2012, psychologist John Eastwood and Alexandra Frishen at York University published the first rigorous scientific definition of boredom. They called it a failure of attention, not a lack of stimulation. A failure of the brain's ability to engage meaningfully with the stimulation that is already there. Think about what that means. You can be bored in a crowded room. You can be bored mid-conversation. You can be bored staring at a screen full of content specifically designed to prevent boredom. The problem is not the world outside your head. The problem is something happening inside it. Eastwood's team found that bored people are not understimulated. They are cognitively restless. Their attention is searching for something to lock onto and failing to find it. Not because nothing is there, because nothing available feels worth doing. That distinction matters enormously, because it means boredom is not a passive state. It is an active signal. Your brain is not going quiet. It is firing a warning. And it has been doing that since long before screens existed. Now here's where it gets strange, because if boredom is a warning signal, the question becomes, what exactly is it warning you about? To answer that, you have to understand what the human brain was actually designed to do. For most of human history, your brain was never unoccupied, not in the way it is today. A hunter-gatherer moving through unfamiliar terrain was reading the ground for tracks, reading the sky for weather, reading the tree line for movement. Every sense was deployed. Every quiet moment had potential danger folded inside it. The human brain evolved for a world that demanded everything it had. It was built to navigate complex social hierarchies that shifted constantly, to plan across long time horizons when the outcome of that planning meant whether your children ate, to solve problems that had never been solved before because the environment kept changing and the old solutions kept failing. It was built for a life where the gap between a good decision and a bad one was survival itself. What it was not built for is sitting still with nothing at stake. Neuroscientist James Dankert at the University of Waterloo has spent nearly 2 decades studying boredom. His conclusion is that boredom is the brain signaling a mismatch. The brain expects to be deployed. It expects to matter. When it detects that it is not being used in proportion to its actual capacity, it generates an aversive signal designed to push you towards something more demanding. That signal is boredom, which means boredom is not a flaw in the system. It is the system working exactly as designed. Your brain is telling you that you are capable of more than what you are currently doing. The problem is not the signal. The problem is that the world you live in today has almost no honest use for it. Now here is the part almost nobody talks about. Animals do not get bored the way you do. This is not an assumption. It has been studied directly. Researchers studying animal cognition have found that while some highly intelligent animals, elephants, great apes, certain corvids show behaviors that resemble restlessness under captivity and understimulation, they do not appear to experience the existential dimension of boredom that humans do. A dog left alone for 8 hours does not lie there questioning the purpose of its existence. It waits. Its brain is not generating a recursive signal about the gap between its potential and its current deployment. It is simply in a low arousal state until something in the environment changes. The difference comes down to one thing: metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking, to be aware that you are aware, to observe your own mental state from the outside and evaluate whether it matches what it should be. Humans are the only animals that do this in the full sense, and it is precisely what transforms restlessness into boredom. When you are bored, you are not just registering that nothing interesting is happening. You are registering that you are a person with capacity and purpose, and that right now, none of it is being used. That judgment requires a self that can stand outside its own experience and evaluate it. A dog cannot do that. A chimpanzee cannot do that. Only you can, and it costs you every single day. Here is where it gets darker. In 2014, a team at the University of Virginia ran an experiment that became one of the most replicated findings in modern psychology. They placed participants alone in a plain room with nothing to do for 15 minutes. No phone, no book, no window worth looking at. Just a chair and their own thoughts. And a button. The button delivered a mild but genuinely unpleasant electric shock. Before the session began, every participant was shocked once, so they knew exactly what it felt like. And every participant said, without exception, that they would pay money to avoid being shocked again. After 6 minutes alone in the room with nothing happening, 67% of men and 25% of women pressed the button anyway, voluntarily, deliberately, just to have something happen. Think carefully about what that tells you. Given a direct choice between sitting with their own unoccupied mind and experiencing physical pain they had already decided they wanted to avoid, the majority chose the pain. Not because they were irrational, because the brain generating the boredom signal was doing its job exactly as designed. It wanted deployment. It wanted consequence. It got both. It did not particularly care what form they came in. Dankert and others have since found that chronic boredom is not merely unpleasant, it is corrosive. People who score high on boredom proneness show significantly higher rates of depression, anxiety, substance use disorders, impulsive decision-making, and what researchers call maladaptive sensation-seeking. Not because boredom directly causes those conditions, but because a brain that cannot find meaningful engagement will find any engagement. And without a better option available, it will not be selective about what it chooses. The brain does not distinguish between a meaningful challenge and a destructive one. It only distinguishes between engaged and not engaged, and it will take the destructive option over nothing, every time. This is the part that connects to everything else. A brain built for a world where every moment carried weight is now living in a world where almost nothing genuinely requires it. The predators are gone. The food arrives without a hunt. The shelter manages its own temperature. The navigation runs on a satellite. The social hierarchy plays out on a screen. And the brain that was built to track, to plan, to solve, to lead, to build, to protect, wakes up in the morning and finds that almost nothing it was designed for actually needs doing. So it reaches for the phone. Not because the phone satisfies the signal, because the signal will not stop until something does. Anything. Here is what makes it worse. The modern world did not create boredom, but it created the conditions in which boredom has no honest resolution. Every solution the world offers is a simulation of engagement rather than engagement itself. Content that mimics novelty without delivering it. Notifications that mimic social stakes without carrying real consequence. Stimulation engineered to occupy attention just long enough to hold it, but not long enough to satisfy the brain that was built for something that actually mattered. And so the signal fires again. You reach for the phone again. The cycle runs exactly the same way it ran yesterday, and the day before that. Boredom is not laziness. It is not weakness. It is not a sign that you need more content or more entertainment or a more stimulating life in the shallow sense of that phrase. It is the clearest signal your brain has that it was built for something it is not currently doing. The signal is working perfectly. It has always been working perfectly. The question it cannot answer is what that something is. That part was never automated. That part was always yours to work out. Most people never do. So the signal keeps firing, and they keep reaching for the phone. And the brain that was built to navigate a world that no longer exists keeps sending the same message into a silence that was never supposed to be there.